order. It's the regular meeting for June 13th, 2019. First order of business is to ask if there is anybody here that is missing this pair of prescription
Those are mine.
sunglasses. Those-
See, they're just like this one.
Yeah,
Uh,
but they're not yours.
They're not.
I don't know.
No, they are. Yeah, these are the identical twin of them.
So- Well, then you, okay, forget that.
Now I have the back. That's good because those are $600 glasses.
Exactly.
Oh, no, they're mine.
You don't have my prescription.
Well, good, I should have asked before.
You
Okay.
picked them up, or you found them?
No, Leslie picked them up
Oh, I thought that they were Richard's.
at the last meeting.
They were right in front of his chair.
Yeah, I put them sort of to the side a little bit.
So, well, that's resolved, that's very good.
I'm very
So,
happy.
public comment. Members of the public may address the planning commission concerning matters within their jurisdiction which are not listed on the agenda, and to request that a matter be agendized for a future meeting. No action may be taken on these matters at this time. Is there anybody that would like to speak at this time?
Good evening, Commission. Justin Hawkins from Hayfork. Well, actually, I should just provide you each with a copy first, maybe before I start. I just wanted to spend a moment tonight talking to you about the EIR that's been released. It's a pretty weighty document, and I think that it takes some time to go through, and I wanted to just maybe mention a few things from it, if I may. The first page I gave you, number 3, it has highlighted for you, discusses the alternatives to the project, and as noted there, alternative 4 is the environmentally superior alternative that they are looking at. And yet, if you look at this, they're asking about reducing the number of licenses that are allowed. You have a CD, and I'll call it. It's alternative 4, and they're looking to reduce the licenses available in our county from the 530 we have in our current ordinance down to 280. And they're also would like to restrict new cannabis cultivation operations and non-cultivation uses within what are called priority watersheds. Within the CDFA regulations, in section 8216, I didn't bring it in, but it talks about impacted watersheds, and South Fork of the Trinity and Hayfork Creek are some of those impacted watersheds within our county. There's other ones in Humboldt and Mendocino. And if the Water Board and Fish and Wildlife decide that there is too much impact being from cultivation, this is both legal and illegal cultivation. Okay? And what I'm trying to maybe mention here is that the use of this underneath alternative 4, that first bullet point about restricting the sites to priority watersheds, the impacts into those watersheds, our own watersheds, which we see every day almost, and we talk about all the time, are from illegal cultivation. And there's been a lack of enforcement for years now. It really hasn't ever really ramped up, and that's frankly not the fault of anybody in this room probably. Although if you read the Sacramento Beat articles, it does appear to have some relevance to political situations in our county maybe over the last year or two. But the fact that there's illegal cultivation shouldn't be held against the licensed farmers. In fact, I understood this originally years ago when we first started developing the program here. It was about the licensing being the mitigation for illegal cultivation, right? And you can't, I think what they're trying to do here is combine impacts from illegal cultivation with licensed cultivation. And licensed cultivation is set up, it's extremely restrictive in what can be happening. It's basically beyond organic, especially with the testing standards. I think by reducing the number of licenses and not allowing new licenses within Hayfork Creek and the South Fork of the Trinity watersheds, where's the carrot? It's all stick. There's nothing to incentivize people to get in. And I think it leads down a bad path for our county. And, you know, it's probably the environmentally superior alternative, right? I suppose if humans didn't exist, that would be the superior alternative. I'm not kidding. To me, if people are allowed to have a licensed farm where they're supposed to be living, they're going to take care of it better than they could in any other way, especially if they don't have a job. And right now, enforcement is used as a tool to eliminate illegal cultivation, but the reality is that that alone will never get rid of it. That's not how the world works. And in the end, I hope that you take some time to look at these situations. And the other page I provided you talks a little bit about objectionable odors. And there's a whole can of worms. I won't take up all your time today with that, but please read over that. And maybe, you know, the last bullet point of the 3.3-3 on the second page there talks about correcting off-site odor complaints. That sounds really problematic in how you develop a program about off-site odor complaints, to the point where they're going to ask the farmers to have an immediate complete harvest or move everything inside. I don't know how you move a 10,000 square foot garden inside, especially if someone's seeking a type 3 license. Are they going to put 44,000 square feet of canopy inside? Impractical. Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. Jake Rosman, Coast Hayfork. It's great to see you all. I haven't been here for a long time. I can tell you it's been a much happier, healthier way to live. But I had no plans on speaking about anything. I was really here in support of Nick. But this whole EIR thing is a little insane. I luckily have not spent the time to read the entire document. To be quite frank with you, I probably will never read it. I never was much for fiction. So everything's got to be the same for everybody in this county. If you got to build a house to grow weed, you got to build a house to grow corn. If you get your crop cut down because somebody in the county government smells cannabis off-site, then you should get all your pigs slaughtered if they can smell your pig farm off of the property. You know, like, this is getting more ridiculous and more ridiculous. We're literally the same department that deemed it impossible and the worst thing in the world to grow indoor cannabis in Trinity County just said that if your weed smells, you should move it inside. Like, every layer of this is just absolute insanity. And like, we're all out here just trying to farm, you know? The notion of all of us being clumped together with legal and illegal and this environmental report can only be drawn with the conclusion that if we don't offer more licenses in this county, or continue to be like, hey, you want to come get licensed? Come get licensed. People that want to further their business are just going to grow illegally. 10,000 square feet isn't a big enough volume for anybody to satisfy their business needs. And if you can't get other licenses, you're just going to grow weed illegally, like the other 5,000 people in this county that are growing weed. So like, either just let us have that and tell law enforcement to leave us alone, or let's let people have licensed businesses in this county. Seems kind of like a better option. But this whole make-believe thing, the EIR, all this stuff that goes directly against state facts, state laws, state studies, like, I think we're a pretty great county, but we are definitely not better funded and better, you know, at sculpting these laws. I think we can all agree that after watching cannabis in Trinity County and then watching the state draw lines. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
All right. Hi there. My name is Patrick. Patrick Kahn. I am a licensed Trinity County cultivator with a annual license with the state. And I thought I got somewhere. I thought that was sort of a goal, and it has been for me. It's sort of a desired finish line. And I'm not completely prepared for, because I haven't been here in a while, I've been focused on that. But I have heard about the EIR, and I hear what people are saying about the smell, and I just wanted to say thank you, because due to your efforts, I have a state license, and I appreciate that. That shows a lot of, that shows that that something's happened since I started this process with you all, and I really appreciate that. So I wanted to acknowledge that. But I also want to continue on that track. I want the opportunity to allow other people to sort of experience what for me has been somewhat of a dream, you know, to get to this point. Where that leads, I don't know. But as I can, you know, get from the feeling in the room that there's a lot of uncertainty, and I certainly feel that way. And so I just want to appeal to you to be reasonable. That's what I've asked for all along. I'm a special case, so to speak, but I think there's a lot of people who are that way in the county. So don't do things with a blanket sweeping brush and think that you're going to help the cannabis community or even help the other sides of the community. We all need to work together to participate to make this work and to keep it working. And I want to work with you on that. So the smell, I'll just break it down. This is my shirt. This is from the 80s. This is sort of my history. And I want to share it with you because this isn't me. This is my parents. Okay, but what this represents is it represents energy. It represents power, like nuclear power. Okay? So Trinity County, where does that go? We have renewable power in this county. You guys, I have a lot to learn about this county from its legacy in renewable energy. That's what this shirt represents to me. If you make regulations on outdoor cannabis so regulatory in this unique environment, this is what you're doing. You're driving it inside. You're creating an effect on the environment. You're making a decision to make it harder to grow outside. That goes to smell. We need to be reasonable. Otherwise, if we're not reasonable, this is the effect. Weed is grown inside where there's absolutely no smell or no sun. You solved your problem. But I don't see that as a solution. So as the smell says, we need reasonable solutions. Same with the watersheds. Same with the water rights as it relates to what I've seen in this ER. I have not completely thoroughly read it, but if there's a blanket of like the whole South Fork watershed, and you're going to go backwards, which I need to know, like I need to learn from you all in this experience, whether that's an intent of an EIR to cut people out of the stewardship that they've brought to the table and the accomplishments that they want to bring to the future of this community. So that's my overreaching thing that I brought that I wanted to convey, is that, yeah, I want things faster, yeah, I want things to work better, but what I want is an opportunity to look across and work within this community and as a bigger whole, what's going on a state level, a national level, and be realistic. We can be west of the hemp pollen clouds only thing that determines that right now is Humboldt County and our desire to be there. There's regulation that can do that. We're unique in the geography that we bring, agriculturally, you know, and seasonally, and with the ruralness that's here. So I just hope that we can work together to better steward the land through learning what cannabis has to offer. Thank you.
I would like to just make one comment, if I may. I'd like to remind everybody that there is a flyer at the front. We will be having public meetings on the EIR, and they are in every community throughout June, and please come and make your comments there. And remember that they must be in order to be considered, you also need to provide written comments. So is there anybody else that has anything they want to speak about tonight? Okay, then let's move on to our first, there is no old business. Let's move on to our first order of new business, and that's, oh, I'm sorry, the minutes. It's been a while since I've been chair. Okay, the minutes. Do we have any comments or corrections on the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
I have one correction on page, I believe it's 8. Find it. Page 8, under item 7, the commissioners that approved were there were 3 of them, not 4, and 2, because there are only 5 of us. You've got it carries 4 to 2. Yeah, there's only 5 of us. Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor, what do you want to amend your motion?
I will amend the motion to make that correction.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I won't ask if there's anyone opposed, because it's all there is. Okay, new business. The proposed mitigated negative declaration in cannabis conditional use permits, CCUPT 3-18-07 and CCUPN-19-03. It's a public hearing, proposed mitigated negative declaration, cannabis cultivation use permit and cannabis nursery use permit located at 610 Cout Road, and I hope I said that right, Burnt Ranch, APN 008-210-10, and the applicant is Trinity Sungrown and Holiday. And we'll turn it over to staff when we have public comments. If you could please confine your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. Our applicant is here this evening, as is his consultant, and they will be able to answer questions if you have any. This applicant was one of the earliest water board enrollees in the county. He's been on this parcel. It's about 200 acres. He's been there for a number of years, and he was one of the early adopters into our cannabis program late in 2016. He's been compliant since the beginning of the program, and he really specifically chose this parcel for a cultivation, for a larger scale, eventually larger scale cultivation site. He is proposing to increase from his current 10,000 square foot canopy site up to 1 acre of canopy and to include a nursery. He is zoned Ag Preserve, and you access the parcel via private road, Cout Road, like you said, off of Underwood Mountain Road. The CEQA document included several mitigation measures for biology. Air quality was not called out in the CEQA document as having a significant impact unless mitigated, but there is a condition of approval related to air quality for any kind of spraying of pesticides that would occur on site to limit spraying to under 10-mile-an-hour winds. There is a mitigation measure related to the spotted owl. So there was a historical hit on spotted owl being present in the area. And so the mitigation is to limit hours of operation and also limit the prey base. So by limiting rodents, doing an integrated pest management plan, the idea is limit rodent proliferation, and you'll probably limit an owl wanting to access anywhere close to that site. And there are also kind of standard mitigation measures related to cultural resources in terms of any kind of chipped or brownstone or bone being discovered or human remains. Those are standard conditions of approval that we have and mitigation measures in most of our conditional use permits. There is one condition of approval. There's a condition of approval for geology and soils, saying that the applicant must be compliant with the Trinity County Environmental Health Department as far as any septic installation goes. There is also a condition of approval regarding a variance, and that's probably the question of the evening: where is variance? And that's caused a lot of heartburn and lost sleep, because we tracked those on 2 different time paths, and so the variance is not here this evening. It will be on July 11th. I can speak to how the variances are processed during matters from staff, and I'd like to do that because this really brought out the shortcoming in the way that we track our variances. We have over 40 of them we've had over 40 since the beginning of the year. So they've been very difficult to track, and this is one of them that fell into a category that is unlike most of the others. But it has already been routed, and it will be ready for the commission on the 11th of July. There is a condition of approval also regarding a construction general permit, although the applicant has contacted the water board and they are willing to do an ag exemption for the property. Okay? There's a mitigation monitoring and reporting plan that is attached to the staff report, or is it attached to the backup staff report? It's on the very last page of the staff report. So if you have any questions about that. I think that they're pretty self-explanatory. We did receive comments from Fish and Wildlife and from the water board. I believe that the staff report presents all of the responses to comments. We received another comment during the variance routing in favor of the project, but that is included with the variance rather than here with the conditional use permit. And it is acceptable to review the conditional use permit this evening and handle the variance separately. Do you have any questions for staff?
I do have one question. Land, adjacent land, there's one to the north, says rural residential, it says vacant. Is there a residence on that, or it's just the zoning itself for the question?
To the north?
Yeah, it's on the second page of the very second page of the report.
I think the home is to the west. The home is to the west, correct?
The property is to the west, but the home is 1,500 feet away,
Southwest.
northwest.
That's
Southwest.
right. Thank you. No more questions. I don't have any.
Okay, I have no questions either, so we'll open it to public comment if the applicant would like to speak, or his representative.
Hello, Commission, Planning Department. I'd like to say thank you for seeing me tonight.
Would you identify yourself?
I am Nicholas Holliday of Burnt Ranch, and I am seeking the conditional use permit. Now, I thought that it might be a good idea to kind of show you guys the ranch, because you guys haven't been there, so the tabs at the top are actual pictures of the ranch. So I think it provides a good idea of what you're looking at, as opposed to just an aerial image from the county GIS. But other than that, I'd like to say that the variance is definitely an issue. It's a shame that it's not on here tonight. There is a letter of support from the only neighbor that that variance is for, if that makes any difference whatsoever. But when I purchased this ranch 4 years ago, it's 200 acres into the road, 3 sides national forest, paved access, but also out of any eye shot, any nose shot of being any nuisance to anyone else. I purchased this hoping that it was the prime property for a multi-acre cannabis farm. Now I understand that here I am 3 years later after getting into the program, 4 years later after owning the property. The first year I actually had an acre that I grew up there, and I scaled way back to get into the permit process because I wanted to be part of this. I wanted a job in 5 years, and we're coming up on it, and I still have a job. Thank you for that. Thank you for allowing me to have the 10,000 square feet. I did shut down the property next door that I had owned for 7 years now, so I could run just this ranch and be in complete compliance with everything here. When I bought this place, it fit every parameter, every covenant, condition, restriction, every setback, every zoning issue that I could possibly come up with to think that this would be great for a multi-acre farm. I'm asking today, obviously for an acre of canopy and a nursery to provide for my farm and my farm next door that I've now given to my mother. Bless her heart. As far as the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the only time I've ever had them out on this ranch, they got out of their truck and immediately said to me, "Wow, I can't believe that the county is keeping you to 10,000 square feet here." Because it is such a large parcel suitable for ag. And when I say it's zoned ag because it's been ag for over 100 years, not because somebody went to the planning department and changed the zoning for their property. This has had ag operations on it for over 100 years, whether it's been sheep or cattle or orchards. It has 2 pre-1914 water rights available for ag operations. As you can see, it's open and flat, and it's my little slice of paradise. I really hope that you guys can see it in your hearts tonight to pass this thing through. That's really all I have to say. I'm sure my consultants will back me, and I thank everyone for being here tonight, because I know it's just for little old me. I appreciate that. And I'll be right here if you guys have any questions with this, because I think there is some confusion with some of the language in it. I'm right here, happy to answer any questions, and thank you again.
No clapping, that's not acceptable. Go ahead.
Hello, Ben Brady from Wildwood. This seems like a pretty straightforward situation. I hope it's a slam dunk. I think it should be. I read through the whole report, and it seems like SHN did a pretty good job of assessing different things that needed to be mitigated. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of them, and they're not too serious, but it seems like they did a good job of addressing that. So really the only thing I just wanted to say to you guys is that if you've been to Nick's farm, or if you're familiar with his business, there's really, in my mind, not a better model for a cannabis operator in this county than him. Every time I go out to his place, I'm like, wow, how is your spot so clean? Like, everything is done the right way, and there's just not a better model for an operator out here. And so if it's not him that gets this thing, I don't know who it would be. So I hope you pass this tonight. Thanks.
Ray Peterson, Driver Consulting. I brought copies of the water use map that was submitted as part of our CEP application, and it didn't make it into the staff report, but I thought it would help clarify any questions about the water system that you guys might have. Want to talk a little bit about that. The cannabis water source is it's diverted from the East Fork of Brainerd Creek, which is a pre-1914 water right, allowing for 2.9 acre feet of water annually. Of that, the estimated cannabis irrigation use for 1 acre is going to be about 0.54 acre feet per year. The rest of that water will be used to irrigate alfalfa and grapes and also to provide water for livestock. Nick intends to have a fully operational ranch and agriculture operation up there. There is an off-stream storage pond that holds 2.3 acre feet of irrigation water so that he's not diverting out of the creek during the sensitive times of year. There's an additional source that provides plenty of domestic water for up to 10 people and any other uses. There are several on-stream ponds that are only used for wildlife habitat and not touched at all for anthropogenic purposes. Comment 1B was about the pond. I just did want to clarify that the irrigation pond is definitely off-stream. It's not an on-stream pond. Therefore, it's not jurisdictional to Fish and Wildlife. It was built as an off-stream irrigation pond in the 90s. One more additional point to clarify is that Cout Road is not a private road. It's a county-maintained road that's paved all the way up to Nick's property. Comment 2C, the water board wants to make sure that the operation is appropriately set back from all surface water. In the staff report, the answer was that he'll be getting a variance. This response is irrelevant because the county setbacks are from property lines and residences, not from surface waters. Nick's North Coast and Water Board reporting is current, and he is currently enrolled in the state Water Board order as a low-risk Tier 2 operator, which means he is appropriately set back from all surface waters. He was an early adopter. He has a final LSA with the Eureka office, and is very compliant on his farm. And just wanted to speak to the condition of approval number 8 that says no gas-powered mowers between 2 hours prior to sunrise and 2 hours prior to sunset. I wanted to know, is that recommended only during the northern spotted owl breeding season or all year long? And does that condition restrict activities related only to cannabis operations, or does it infringe upon the rest of the ranching and agricultural activities? In closing, I just want to say that this is a very appropriate place for a Type 3 license with exactly the type of farmer that we want to support as a Trinity County community. We're only asking for a mere 1 acre crop and nursery activity on a 200 acre parcel that is under contract to produce agricultural products. From a land use standpoint, I think this should be probably a pretty easy decision for you guys. And thank you for your time tonight.
Good evening, Deidre Brower, also with Downriver Consulting. I wanted to go through a couple of the issues in the staff report. The project information on the first page mentions that the current land use is residential cannabis cultivation and undeveloped. There are agricultural activities other than cannabis happening on the property. There's chickens, there's fruit trees, there's a vegetable garden, and Nicholas is working toward restoring the rest of the ranch, but the fencing has dilapidated over the years and needs to be repaired, which is another large project, but there is other ag happening out there. In addition, the proposal on the first page says that cultivation would occur within 6 greenhouses. It's 12 as is on the site plan and mentioned later in the staff report. And the condition number 2 regarding outdoor lighting for safety and security needs to be limited. I just wanted to make clear that that's not going to be an issue. If you were to have too much lighting, it would mess with the plant cycle, and so that won't be happening. Condition number 15 mentions a failure to make use of this permit within 1 year shall make it void. Only section 32 of our zoning ordinance states that a use for which a use permit is granted must be established within 2 years after such a permit is issued. There's a method for allowing an extension of time, but there's no mention of limiting that time to less than 2 years. So we would request that there's 2 years allowed. State licensing takes a long time. We got held back again with this variance. It has been a sticking issue the entire time, the year and a half that we've been trying to get this through. There's a handicap facilities requirement in here, so we would request that there would be 2 years to implement the full license. In the M&D on page 11, there is mentioned that there would be no lights in the greenhouses. We would like the ability to use lights and follow the county ordinance that that light would not leak out of the greenhouses. In the future, he would hope to be able to use lights for the acre cultivation, and there is the nurseries also the nursery that would want them. Page 25 of the CEQA document mentions that there would be no public access to the nursery. However, those with licensed transporters we would request would be able to get to the nursery and not leave that to him. And again, if you have any questions. I also wanted to mention that the previous landowner also submitted a letter of support that we just recently got. She was going to try to be here but was unable to make it. So we have a letter of support from her also that I will give to Ruth. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Goodell, Xenia. Nick is one of the premier cultivators in the county. He's got the perfect spot to do this. You look through recommendations by SHN and they all seem to fall on county or state regs that he has to do already regardless of what SHN says. So it's kind of like these are things he has to do anyways. If anybody should have a shot at really making a go of this business, it should be Nick. He's got the right property for it. He's got the right mindset for it. Obviously, he's wanted to be part of this regulated system since the get-go. And I don't know, he's got my full support. I can't envision anybody more suited to do this. He's farmer-owned and farmer-grown. He's not backed by some out-of-county entity. He's doing this all himself. And that's what I think the original ordinance that came out is that's what Trinity wanted, was they wanted people with residency here. Maybe not anymore, that's fine. But initially, he wanted, the ordinance was to give, the homegrown people the first crack at it, and that would be Nick. That's all I have to say.
Jay goes from Chris Hayforth. There is not much on the face of the earth that I thought would get me back to a planning commission meeting, but getting to hopefully see Nicholas get one step closer to growing an acre, which feasibly probably he will not even be able to do till next year because of state licensing, is definitely something worth knocking off work early for. From the moment that I met Nick and saw his operation, he became now one of my best friends, but also kind of like an older brother. I always felt like I was catching up to him. I was always jealous of his position. Somebody still waiting 5 months on a CUP, still jealous of his position. As I spoke earlier, it would be great to look at some of these guidelines that are being, he can't use his lawnmower between certain hours, but the neighbors on both sides of him can. The variance not being here, I guess, is very unfortunate, but seems to be par for the course. Anybody who knows Burnt Ranch knows that that variance is not to make sure that his neighbor doesn't find cannabis a nuisance. It's to make sure his neighbor is okay with him getting a license. I don't think there's 5 parcels in Burnt Ranch that aren't being grown there. So to see somebody stepping up in a historically documented agricultural piece of property, it's magic there. To see somebody stepping up and really making sacrifices to do this the right way, because Nick should be retired by now. He should be done and out of here and never in a PC meeting. But he decides he's not done with it yet, And he wants to have a real farm growing real cannabis right here in his home town of Trinity County. So I hope you guys really pass it tonight. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Koshal Parekh, San Francisco. I actually supply fertilizers to most of these guys out here. Nick is now a friend, but was initially just a customer. And I've traveled, and my business is agriculture. So I go to farms all over the Central Valley. I go to farms in Trinity County, Humboldt County, and I've seen a lot of different properties. And I have to say, Nick's property itself, the way he maintains it, he's a steward of the land. That is hard to see, and I have seen different people doing it different ways, but Nick wants to do it the right way. And I hope you guys look at all the documents and give him at least, because he's working so hard to do it the right way, give him a shot. Because, otherwise people can go illegally and do other stuff, but he's actually trying to do it the right way. So I hope you guys can actually acknowledge it and do something for him. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Fabian Farrow. I'm a commercial cultivator as well as a grassroots activist. My job today is to travel around the country and tell the stories of the grassroots community. I've met with hundreds, if not thousands, of people from this industry. I've had the opportunity and the privilege to be welcome onto these people's homes, to be on their ranch, and to see how they operate not as just as a business, but as men. There is not one single person during these 10 years that I've met that fit that need other than Nicholas. So much that I've driven 4 hours to come be here to tell you this today. As we move forward in these new worlds of recreation being overturned by now big pharma and big ag, if you're gonna give anyone a shot to fight the giant that's coming down the road, it's Nicholas Holiday. It's not just for him, it's not just for Trinity County, it's for the rest of the state, it's for the rest of the country. I hope that you guys can help set an example for the wave of money that's coming in to demolish not all of us, but the communities we love. Thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, Commission. Justin Hawkins from Hayfork. Well, I don't have a whole lot to say that already hasn't been said, but I just want to take a moment to say that this is about as good as it's going to get, I think. If you've ever seen the place, what he's looking to do there is probably the best way to maintain a parcel that large is to have a decent source of income and really make use of it in this beautiful spot. And I hope that you approve the conditional use permit tonight. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Yes, I think we should pass this, absolutely. I think it illustrates some of the absurdity of the regulations we're forced to deal with, that Nick can grow an acre on this tremendous agricultural parcel. Yes, absolutely should. Sorry it had to go through this very lengthy process. I'm very sorry it has to come back a month later for you to consider the letter that he has from his one neighbor within that 500-foot setback area. That letter that was written in September of 2018. And, maybe we could annotate this. There's not a single type 3 CUP that's going to come before you that doesn't need a variance. So maybe we can attach that where's the variance that goes with the CUP as these move forward. That's the preliminary. To the actual stuff of his CUP, of the 20 conditions that are on page 10 and 11 of the report, Deidre mentioned number 15, which is in boldface on my copy. Failure of the permittee to make use of this permit within 1 year shall result in the automatic expiration and termination of the permit. Not only is that not provided for in the ordinance that it refers to, which I happen to have a copy of if anybody needs it, it's also unique not only to cannabis, it's unique to this ordinance. There have been other CUPs issued for cannabis that don't have that 1 year prohibition. So if we're starting something new, at the very least, we should have a reason why. Otherwise, we should just do the same as we always do. I think that's what everybody's asking for on both sides of the aisle. Treat cannabis farmers the same as other activities. Then on number 12, the permittee is required to submit a security plan for approval by the to the County Board of Supervisors, condition of the permit. Not exactly sure what that means, and I don't know if you guys know what that means or why that means, but that seems like an extra condition that I don't see in any of the ordinances, so I don't know what it's doing there. But anyway, I don't want to take more time. I hope this is an easy one. I hope it passes, and I guess we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Good evening, staff and commissioners. John Brower from Junction City, and I think as you've heard tonight and over the last several years, Mr. Holliday's Trinity Sun-Grown project meets all the conditions that the county and any of the state agencies could have ever asked for. Solid operator within the community, and he's really done a lot of work to get here to this point. It was an interesting experience working with the consultant that prepared the mitigated neg deck document. And there's some issues in there that we're hoping to sort through tonight. It's a shame someone from SHN couldn't be here. Perhaps county staff would be willing to discuss them. But one of the things that we got to be careful setting precedent on, and one of the things in here that really seems inconsistent with law and regulation is this. On page 14 of the initial study, which is the big thick one that's bound, on page 14, there's a clause here that touches on what Justin Hawkins mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. This is important because it could set precedent for future projects in the county. And it reads, as proposed, the project's outdoor cultivation facility requires a variance as it does not meet the property line setback requirements of the cannabis ordinance. Once a variance is issued by the county, the variance is evaluated on an annual basis. Here's the issue. Should odor from the project become an issue at the off-site residence, the county could terminate the variance and require relocation of the outdoor cultivation area further from the property line, or require mitigation be implemented to reduce odors. Based on the analysis above and proposed operating restrictions, development of the project would have a less than significant impact. This entire project has no impact or less than significant impact, as do most of these that have come before you. But this sets a very dangerous precedent. In the land use and planning courses I took when I was in planning commissioner school, when I sat on the commission with you, they were very clear that a permit proves the mitigation of a nuisance. The permitting process and things like zoning codes and zones mitigate nuisances. And once a permit is approved, that is no longer to be considered a nuisance, period, in any other industry in the state of California. So I ask that I ask a few things. One, please approve this CEQA document, this mitigated negative declaration. And perhaps strike this silly paragraph before you approve it. It's just one of the things in here that really should be taken more seriously. And it's a long document, but this sets a very dangerous precedent, and I think it goes strongly against all the other land use law that I'm aware of in our state. I also encourage you to approve the variance when it comes up. It's a shame that it's been in process for a year and a half and still couldn't appear here tonight. And there's two other things I ask you to approve. One is the CUP for his 1 acre of cultivation, and another is the CUP for his nursery operation. Nicholas is absolutely one of the top operators in the county. He absolutely deserves a crack at this. So And also thank you, everybody, for all your work in helping this program to get to this point. It's something that we should all really celebrate. Everyone's got a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. And this is really something that we should be celebrating. Let's help her move forward.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good evening. I'm Joe Morio. I'm your new agricultural commissioner, and I feel obligated to come speak in behalf because he wants a nursery license. Nursery products are highly regulated in California, as they should be, because if we ship dirty stock, everyone gets infested and causes all kinds of problems. I've not been to his place, but I certainly know of his reputation. I can't wait to work with him on nursery regs. You must understand that in the current situation, his nursery license will come out of Cal Cannabis, which is a stovepipe separate end of CDFA. CDFA accepts lots of federal money. They don't want to lose that federal money. So all the cannabis regulations are housed in, so what I'm saying is they don't have real nursery inspectors. It's going to come down to him complying, me explaining. This will come down to a local level. It's a very important thing. We cannot have dirty stock infesting people, and that's what we have right now. I can't wait to get a licensed local nursery producer that I can send people to, because I can already tell from the man's reputation, every time I go there, I'm going to be all smiles because he's going to be complying with everything we ask of him. So I think his track record ought to speak for something. We do need a local licensed nursery that gets inspection and lives up to the really tough standards that are in for commercial nursery stock. And I hope it passes because I can't wait to get the opportunity to work with the man. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Hello, Commission. My name is Catherine, and I live in Junction City. And I don't have a whole lot to say other than what everyone else has already said here, and that's it. Please approve this. This is exactly the kind of farmer and grower that we need to approve in this community. We need someone who's willing to follow the rules, and this gentleman is. And I think that it's for our environmental and economic health in this community, this is what we need to do. We need people like this, and if we can get more people like this growing in an environmentally safe, responsible way, that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Is that all of the comments now? Okay, then I will bring it back to the commission. This actually brought up a couple of questions that I have for staff. But first I'll say, do you have anything that you want to
the same.
Okay, one is the issue of the spotted owl. Does that condition only apply during the breeding season?
It would make most sense that it would.
Okay, so then it should state that. And does it apply only to the cannabis operation or to the his entire farm? Keeping in mind that there are animals that need to be fed and equipment that will take, tractors and things that will be taking hay out to cattle perhaps, or...
Of course, this CUP refers to the cannabis cultivation and nursery.
Okay, so it does not apply to the entire farm, the entire ranch operation.
Right.
Okay, and then number 12, that security plan for approval, that's supposed to go to the planning department, is it not? I mean, not every person who is growing is going to be submitting a security plan to the Board of Supervisors.
Correct.
So it should be going to the planning department and not the county board of supervisors.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a correction.
Is there a security plan required for cultivation?
Well,
I mean, manufacturing, I remember, and other distribution, but
I thought that when we eliminated the fences, we said that in exchange for giving up the fences, they had to turn in a security plan.
Which may include a fence and
Which
may not.
may or may not include a fence.
Point of
Well,
order,
there's a
I don't
point.
believe the ordinance adopted that.
Correct.
The supervisors did not adopt that recommendation.
I could read, it reads, I believe it reads, perhaps staff can look it up, but I believe it reads, a fencing could be part of a security plan,
Right.
but it does not mandate a security plan. Or
Oh,
fencing,
interesting.
is how it reads.
So is
And
there
for
a requirement for a security plan for,
It's not the same through CDFA as all the other projects.
and Commissioner Horde was correct that distribution does require a security plan,
Right.
but it doesn't seem this much.
Not cultivation.
Les? Can you find it any place?
I'm scanning for it.
Okay. I found it if you want me to read it.
What page?
It is on the amendment that was February 20th, 2019, page 12 of 20.
Can you tell us what paragraph?
It's item E. Good thing I did this.
Paragraph E, you said, but that's just about fencing, that doesn't
Yeah, there's no
say
security
anything about the
requirement.
security plan.
If that wasn't adopted by the Board of Supervisors, then we would have to strike that. So strike 12. And then 15, the 2 years versus 1 year. I'm sorry?
Is it correct?
2 years?
Yes.
Okay. So that's,
Just strike the second sentence.
yeah. Strike the part that's in bold.
yes.
And then, we don't need to say anything about the fact that it's 12 greenhouses instead of 6, because that's not part of the findings or the conditions or the motion.
Correct.
And I did not see any anything. The only thing that I recall reading was about the outdoor lighting having to be downcast. It does not mention a condition for lighting within the greenhouses, not escaping from from dusk to dawn, not dawn to dusk. So that would be a condition that we would need to add. Is that correct?
It's part of the CEQA document.
It is in the CEQA document?
Yes, which gets incorporated.
We did not receive the whole CEQA document, so did you find it?
No, I was looking at the one that John Brower did regarding the revocation of the variance.
Do you know, do you know where it is?
Yes,
Deidre?
I do. It is on page 11, paragraph, section D, the last sentence in the second paragraph.
Okay, this, okay, so it's there, and so we don't need to,
Well, I believe that it gets incorporated, the whole application in CEQA gets incorporated in the conditional use permit.
I'm sorry, I could not hear.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
My understanding is that the entire application and CEQA document gets incorporated in the conditional use permit. So that's why we were asking that that be addressed. So we're not limited by that sentence.
Okay, that. Oh, okay. So, do you see what she's talking, okay, so how would we,
I mean, the issue is that, I mean, in the state's letter, it says that the ISMND explicitly states the applicant will not use artificial lights on the cultivation site at any time.
okay, where's that?
I mean, they don't reference where in the document it is, but I assume they can.
Oh, okay. But it does have, on 1D, on 21, it does say that in addition to the requirements in the cultivation ordinance that light generated by a project be downcast, and that,
That's security lighting, that's not.
no, but and prevented from escaping greenhouses, another mitigation strategy.
Which is already in the ordinance, already required to be
Yeah,
done.
exactly. So,
It's a performance standard.
yeah, and so I don't know that we need to address it specifically.
Well, I mean, if they think the document says that he's not going to use artificial light at all, ever, in cultivation, then that's an issue.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
CDFA requires that you have lights to keep plants and
I
vegetables.
understand that. I mean, I haven't read the document, so I don't know whether this is accurate. I mean, certainly the response says that it's a performance requirement and it's not an issue.
Well, logically, if they're required to not allow any light to escape, then it's not going to be an issue. But do we need to mention that in the conditions?
It's a performance standard that's already listed in the cultivation ordinance.
Doesn't need to be because,
So then we're saying that this is contradicting the performance standard by saying specifically that N will not use artificial light on the cultivation site at any time. So that's what the document here, the initial study says. No light will be generated from the proposed cultivation site because the applicant proposed to use light deprivation and will not use artificial lights on the cultivation site, so at any time. So that's a conflict.
But that's on the cultivation site. Are they thinking of in terms of the cultivation site just being the outdoor cultivation site and not inside the greenhouses?
Would the applicant like to speak to that?
The writers of the secret document?
Well, it seems like the ordinance provides for
Well,
protection in
that's
this area.
the way I
and it gets
feel about
redone
it.
and
Yes, I believe that if it's possible, then we should eliminate this sentence out of the initial study and refer to the performance standards stipulated in the ordinance, so there's no confusion. And so the applicant would not be restricted to
Yes.
never
Yes.
be able to use artificial light. I don't think that's a need. I mean, and not only to mention that he's gonna have a nursery, I mean, like.
Right.
I can personally attest if light escapes from your greenhouse, the police will come and raid your house and cut down your license fine. That's what's on the search warrant. So I promise you, there won't be light escaping from anybody's greenhouses ever again in Trinity County. Not licensees.
Okay, let's get back under control here.
Regardless of what Fish and Wildlife is asking, he would be out of compliance if light escaped from the greenhouse under our own cultivation ordinance.
Okay, so do we need to address this?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so how
I'm
can we
I'm
not?
nervous about that if
How
there's
can
something
we
in the
not, how can
document.
we not address it? And somebody pulls this up in a year or two and says, but wait a minute. It says he's not going to be using any artificial lights, and he is, if we don't address it.
Yes, I think we should address it, absolutely.
Well, the CUP includes the project description for, if you read the description, the first paragraph of the project description in the CEQA document, it says, the applicant proposes to use a combination of full sun outdoor and light deprivation cultivation techniques. It's not included to be mixed light at this time. He would have to revisit and modify the conditional use permit if he wanted to do that. The type 2 licenses are outdoor licenses in Trinity County at this time. So if he wanted to do mixed light in the future, he would need to revisit this. The cultivation ordinance would need to change.
That's not true.
Okay, but there, he is asking for a nursery as well.
And the nursery, that's separate, yes.
And the nursery will have to have lights.
But they still, the lights in the nursery, we still would not allow light to.
No, I know, I understand that.
So you're saying just put it in there?
Yeah.
As a condition, okay?
Well, I'm sorry, like, back to this sentence, what do we do about that? That no artificial light on the cultivation site will be used at any time. I just have a problem with that sentence. I mean, I personally, I'd like to see.
Because
that removed.
obviously, there is going to.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
for the nursery.
Matt?
I mean, I have a question, I guess, for staff about can we make changes to an to the CEQA document without going through some process?
If it's a minor change, yes, you could, but major change, no, you couldn't. Any significant change that would require rerouting of it, that would not be allowed.
So is it up to us what's considered a significant change and what's considered a minor change? If we consider it a minor change to say that he can have artificial lights
For the nursery portion.
for the
of
nursery
the
portion
operation.
of his operation, then that to me is not a major change, because it still has to be shielded and.
I totally understand that, but the sentence in the state's letter, it says, "It is assumed this statement applies to the project as a whole, including the nursery greenhouses as well as the mature canopy greenhouses and hoop houses."
And that.
Blah, 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 blah. So, is it significant if an agency thinks otherwise than the action that we're proposing to take?
It says it's assumed, right?
So they made the wrong assumption.
Well, that's it. I think that's kind of where we're at, that they have made an assumption without checking. And that's not good business. Yes.
I cannot solve the problem, but I can shed some light. We currently do compliance inspections. The mixed light that is because they're using light depth with tarps is because of the tarps. But when we go do the canopy inspection, the tax basis part of it, which is a really serious thing on the state level, we only do the mature, that word mature. So it says cultivation area. Right now, the veg part is allowed to be lit, have lights when they're small and in the cold time. And when they come out for flower is what we measure. And if there's no lights, that's how they're currently doing it for compliance, both the state and the county. We're getting paid for these inspections, and we've gotten paid, so we've done it right. And I've been to several of these places that have reminded me, no, Joe, that's the veg. And I go, oh yeah, that's right, those aren't. So I can only ask that to illustrate that. I think that part that said mature canopy, they talk about, mature flower, I interpret that as the canopy. The thing we're measuring that they're gonna pay their tax on, and they're allowed to light the veg. And I think that distinction is not in the first iteration that you do need to solve. I can't solve the problem, I can shed some light on it, that the lights only count as far as licensing if it's on in flower. Does that help?
There's already laws saying you have to have lights, and there's already laws saying that you have to mitigate those lights and cover them. You know?
No. Thank you, but it's not public comment right now.
Let's call it insignificant and plan to strike that sentence. I have no problem with that.
I agree with that.
Okay. Okay, then our determination is that it is an insignificant change if we strike that sentence. So.
There was also the issue about public access that was brought up, that
I don't recall that.
Ms. Brower brought up. She said it was on 23 or something?
Page 25.
25? I wrote 3 down.
Oh, it was 25. This.
I have not read that.
And if I may ask where?
It is the last paragraph above mitigation measures. It starts on the second line, therefore.
Oh, okay. Trinity County Ordinance 315-833 restricts auxiliary nursery sales, right there?
Yes, that next line.
For cannabis nurseries established in the agricultural preserve zoning district, therefore operations will preclude access to the site for the general public. Due to the limited size of the project and due to the agricultural rather than the industrial nature of the project, there will be no significant sources of GHGs either during construction or during routine operation. But if I may ask a question of the applicant?
Sure.
This is going to be a commercial nursery, not a wholesale nursery, not a public nursery, is that correct? Not a retail nursery?
Absolutely, and in fact, the only people I would be able to sell to would have to have
A
licenses.
Okay, so that shouldn't be an issue then?
I don't want the general public coming up to my
No.
All right, so that was not an issue?
No, because he's not going to be opening his greenhouse to the general public, or his nursery rather. Okay, was there anything else that you had, Graham?
Nope.
Richard?
Yes, I do. John Brower brought the issue in the initial study on page 14 about the odor and the possible revocation of the variance. If,
Unfortunately, perhaps staff could address that, because it's my understanding that this is simply part of the whole cannabis variance process. If a neighbor gets a letter and they object, then it ends up coming back to the commission. Is that not correct?
That is the process that we followed so far. That
And odor is one of the things they can object on.
so it says here that, just to be clear, should odor from the project become an issue at the off-site residence, the county could terminate the variance and require relocation of the outdoor cultivation area further from the property. I assume then by counties means this would come back to the planning commission, and us as county representatives could, change the conditions of the permit or revoke the variance.
yes, and that is very awkward. The point is made between the clunkiness of the variance and with the use permit.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing now.
I'm comfortable with that, because as long as, I have faith in this commission personally, and so for us to review that again, I just don't want this to fall through the cracks and then someone at county level, whatever level, could revoke the variance, so.
May I speak to this issue briefly?
Does anyone, do you have any issue if we reopen public comment?
I'll keep it very
Okay.
limited. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I agree that the current variance process is a means of keeping neighbors from affecting other neighbors with odor. And it usually works pretty good. But my problem is this, that the county could terminate the variance. This is an annual variance, and if the neighbor complains about odor or some other nuisance that has a variance, then the next year that it's up for renewal, instead of it being a director's use permit, if it's something controversial, then the director of planning brings it back to the planning commission to consider and offers a public hearing where folks can talk about and discuss something of controversy. But nowhere in any other variance that I'm aware of in the state of California can the county terminate the variance. It's a terrible way to do this.
I think what we need to do is clarify that wording and say that instead of that, if it's say something like if it's an issue at the offsite, at an offsite residence, it doesn't make any sense either, because an offsite residence to me implies that it's a residence perhaps owned by the property owner that's off-site, but that a neighboring residence, if it's an issue at a neighboring residence, the county could require at the next renewal that it be brought back to the planning commission.
And this is a variance from setback to property line on these type 3s.
Right.
Which is very different than what's described here as a variance from a neighboring residential dwelling. So there's confusion here, and we tried to engage with the preparer of this document. They were not responsive.
I mean, the biggest concern for me is like when we were talking about tiered multiple licenses, we all agreed that there was gonna be 0 setback
Right,
on ag zone property.
exactly,
Or,
yes,
because it's ag zone.
exactly.
And people have to expect that there may be
Yes, that-
voters.
yes.
Or whatever
Yes, and
crop
so,
or, but this is different because this is,
I don't know
it's
why
not,
it's,
it's not in the cultivation ordinance, right?
Yeah,
It should
exactly.
be
It should be.
regarding ag zone properties,
Right,
but
but
it's not.
yes.
Jay Councilor Chris Hayford. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say, are you requesting that that be agendized?
Absolutely.
Yes, please. Okay.
I think I agree 100%. I think a couple points to look at is, one, if somebody who has animals on non-ag land, their animals smell, Leslie doesn't get to go out there and kill them or ask them to put them in the barn. Second thing is, we say odor, but like, it can't be left up to the discretion of a county employee on how sensitive their nose is, especially when we have county employees that openly say, I will choke cannabis out of this community, or I will not approve buildings for cannabis farmers. This just has to be the same for everybody. It's just gotta be.
Okay, now I'm going to close public hearing, public comment again. Okay, did you have any other issues? So we're going to change the wording on this.
Yes, that's fine. I do see Mr. Brower's point in the county potentially being able to terminate immediately instead of the annual renewal, which should be observed, in my opinion.
Yes.
So
I think-
I am in favor of changing the word, as you suggested, Madam Chair, to require at the next renewal date.
Okay, did you have anything else? Okay, then I think we need a motion.
May I make
Yes.
one more suggestion?
Yes.
Condition 11,
Oh, yes.
regarding if the permittee draves or disturbs 1 acre or more of land, then they would have to get a construction general permit. I believe the applicant was given written acknowledgement from the water board that he has an ag exemption.
Yeah, they looked at our project and looked at my other parcel next door and sent us an email being like, oh, you're on ag land, this is for an ag operation. They saw no problem with it and said I didn't need the SWIP, is what it's called, the Stormwater Protection.
So we should strike number 11 then?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Yes,
There was, can I first?
yes, please.
Nicholas Holiday, Burnt Ranch, don't know if I need to say it again. There's some talk about there only being 6 greenhouses on there, and there were supposed to be 12. Before you guys passed or denied something, I wanted to make sure that that was clear. And there's also been a lot of talk about the light leaking from these greenhouses. It is easier for me to do it with a 30-foot wide greenhouse as opposed to 20 by 72 it says on there. So if it is 6 greenhouses, or is it 12?
Well, actually, it's my understanding that that's not part of our motion and it's not part of the conditions. It was a mistake in the description, is that correct?
Site plan is accurate,
Yeah,
but the description isn't correct.
exactly.
The site plan is
Has 12.
has
Yes.
12 of them on there.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that if you want me to do 6, I will do 6 bigger ones, or I could, which I would prefer. So, I mean, if that's a change because of the light leaks and everything, it's easier to automate that. That was one of the things that Fish and Game had asked and the county asked. So, it's just something that if they want me to do 6 bigger ones, it's better, or I can just do 12 of the other ones. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going home and taking down 2 greenhouses now because I have 8.
So I'm unclear, you'd prefer to do 6 larger than
Oh.
20 by 74 greenhouses?
6 or whatever the 10,000 square foot math is on those. Because it's easier to automate the bigger ones as opposed to a 20-foot one you can't automate, which is something that they are asking for.
So why did you ask for 12 to begin with?
Well, I asked for 12 to begin with when this was a year and a half ago, and we're not allowed to grade, so we're trying to figure out what space we have. So that's why, and you know, as this light leak issue is becoming more and more, I do not want my lights shining out over the hills. I don't want it. I don't want to go out to my front porch and see that. I don't want to see my neighbors. So I'm just trying to be the better neighbor and be the better steward of the land.
So what
Spend
size?
more money on.
What size would it be if you were?
It would be
to have
30
6?
by hundreds, and that would be basically 4 of them as opposed to 6 more. Is that correct? Because 6 more. The math. Sorry, they're 1,440 square feet right now, and I have 7 of them that equal 10,080 square feet. So to put up 4 of them, that allows for walkways and everything else.
So you want 4...
30 by 100.
30 by 100.
As opposed to 6 20 by 72s, I believe is in there.
It has 12 74 by 20.
I already have 8 of them.
Okay, so you want...
The additional.
So it would be... So if you want 4 more, it's still going to be 12 if you've got 8.
Yes. So there's already the 8 there, plus the 4 others, and then the 2 for the nursery. Is that, the square footage doesn't change.
I got a question, I mean, personally, I think that's up to the applicant, however he wants to distribute how many.
I just wanted to make sure before you pass this, I wasn't locked in.
As long as the canopy and the size is observed, I mean, that's
doesn't matter whether
the applicant's strategy, so I don't.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure before this
Yeah,
passed and I wasn't.
No, but this does have 12, and so however, so basically, we don't care how you configure.
Well, it's got 12 plus it's got 2 and 2, right?
Yeah.
So it's got 2 and it's got 2 for the nursery and 12.
Not in greenhouses, instead of getting specific, since the technology has changed. And
Oh, so I think he's saying 20,000 square feet in greenhouses, no.
additional in greenhouses. Right,
10,000 additional in greenhouses. I think is what he's trying to say. Either, you don't care. No one up here cares. All right, well, I appreciate it. I really do. Like I said, I just didn't want it to pass with there being like
No, it should
more
not.
rules that I'm coming back to
It
change
should not
later.
be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Commissioner Ford is shaking his head. He's writing as fast as he can.
Ruth's shaking her head.
It's going to be a complicated motion.
Yes, it will. So just to clarify, what are the pages that we decided to amend on the initial study? It's page 14 about the county terminating the variance.
Yes.
There was 25. Yeah, that was, about the lighting.
Right.
No, that was somewhere else. That was about public access.
Yeah, that's not, I think it was number 7 then, if I remember correctly.
Page 11.
11. It was 11. And it's we're considering it a minor change.
Yes. Okay, I am ready for the motion. I make a motion to, number 1, adopt the resolution and findings that the initial study and mitigated negative declaration are consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, requirements, and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, MMRP, with including the following changes. On page 11, under aesthetics, section D, paragraph 3, that we strike the last sentence that says, no light will be generated from the proposed cultivation site because the applicant proposes to use light deprivation and will not use artificial light on the cultivation site at any time. So I propose that we strike that. And on page 14 of the initial study, under air quality, paragraph C and D, 5th paragraph, that we change the wording that says the county could terminate the variance, that we change that to read, the county
Could require that the variance be brought back to the planning commission at the time of the next renewal.
Excellent, yes.
Perfect.
In addition to that, number 2, approve the conditional use for development of a cannabis type 3 use subject to the conditions of approval for that use as provided in the staff report in the county cannabis ordinance. And number 3, approve the conditional use permit for development of a cannabis nursery use subject to the conditions of approval for that use as provided in the staff report and in the county's cannabis ordinance with the following changes. That under the recommended conditions of approval, that condition number 8 specify that the condition number 8 only applies to breeding season and to the cannabis operation only.
Correct, and the northern spotted owl breeding season is February 1st to August 31st.
That may be included in the motion. That also, condition number 11 be removed completely. Condition number 12 be removed completely as well. And condition number 15, that the second sentence shall be removed as well. So under condition 15, only the first sentence, which says, this use permit shall become effective after all applicable appeal periods have expired or appeal process exhausted. That is it for number 15.
And you don't want to keep the second sentence with substituting 1 year and saying 2 years instead?
I believe that we agreed as a commission to just strike the second sentence, and it can be referred back to section 32 of the zoning ordinance if needed be. That concludes my motion.
I'll second that extended motion.
Is there any discussion? I think we already did it. Do we need to roll call for this, or just all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. Okay, matters from the commission. Is there anything from the commission?
Yes, I do have something I'd like to bring up. And it's regards of the Mountain Community Health District. I just want to check in with what's the status of the noise mitigation plan. And when I made the motion on that meeting, I did not include for this mitigation plan to come before the commission. However, in favor of those affected neighbors, I would like to see, and I wanted to see if there's a possibility that the commission could review that noise mitigation plan. I don't, so however that works out, I just want to revisit that if we have the chance to. That's all I have.
Did you have anything?
No.
Okay, I don't either. So, on to matters from staff.
Like I said earlier, variances, I wanted to give you an update regarding variances. The way that we have been tracking variances, we've been prioritizing them so that anybody whose license with the county or state is dependent on a variance doesn't fall through the cracks. That we try to keep them current with their licensing. We want to maintain licensing. When people come in to the program, new applicants come into the program and they require a variance, they get tracked, they get inserted into the same timeline as they come in the door, basically. When a variance is required for a conditional use permit, and so far every one of our type 3 applicants has required a variance, they don't fit into either of those categories. That's what happened with this one this evening. So we're aware of it, but if Bella has been processing those variances, she would not be aware of that unless all of those, now we've corrected that process, so now they're all housed together. Since the beginning, we've had a difficulty figuring, okay, the cannabis variance is not, it does not act like another variance. This annual variance is more challenging. We'd like to revisit the general topic of variances at length, but it's going to take some pretty deep diving to figure it out. We're starting to see that we do have the situation where somebody could put in permitted buildings and have a variance for those buildings. Then the next year, if somebody moves in that is new and doesn't like that cultivation site, it's very awkward. How do we handle that? So we're starting to see that some of those are, they're going to be very challenging. We don't want to create a more difficult situation for the neighbors and don't want to set up neighbors to be against one another. So we're going to be bringing it back at some point for more discussion.
Good, because it almost is self-defeating. If somebody buys a property and they know that it's there, then it's kind of like if you buy where there's an airport and you're writing a flight plan, kind of, you did it to yourself.
And that point's been made a number of times, so
yeah,
you'll be seeing it again. We've got, since the beginning of this year, 45 variances have either been in process or are being processed right now. In years past, pre-cannabis variance, I think that variances came up, Ruth could speak to that, once in a blue moon. So, like I said, they're challenging, and that is an indication that we need to figure out a different way, a more effective way of dealing with it. The other thing is the variances, we've kind of held back on the variances when a conditional use permit has been required, because if something comes up during that conditional use permit that should be addressed at the same time in the variance, then we want to make sure that they're consistent. But they have to be tracked. They have to be, the timelines need to be in sync, but this one it wasn't.
So how many of those 45 variances have we heard have come before the commission?
So far this year.
4. We've got to work that out for us.
yes.
And it's the season.
Or you got work to cut out.
Oh, so 8 more.
And with the renewals, in general, the renewals are going fairly well, but we've seen some issues with those. So we're just wanting to avoid, like I said, that situation where somebody has put in the infrastructure and then what happens? They're full of crap. Yeah, the director makes that decision. So we'll be revisiting that in the near future. The question has come up also regarding, and you asked to have it agendized, property line setbacks or setbacks in general for ag parcels. So we'll be getting some help from county council about how best to sync that with our draft EIR. Okay, so staff, we have Bella and Ruth in the planning department, and I have a foot in both roles, cannabis and planning. We might have some staff changes pretty soon. We still have a position for associate/senior level planner. We have another position allocated, one each for cannabis and planning as an associate or senior level planner. So we'll try. Getting qualified applicants has been a big challenge and keeps on being that way. So there's your update.
Next meeting.
June 27th.
And it will not be at 6 o'clock. You had mentioned something about it will be at 7, correct? Because that's what was noticed.
Yes.
And there are a number of things for that meeting.
So far, there is one conditional use permit. Do we have any variances on the claims? No, but there will be a number of them on the.
There's a couple of conditional.
Oh, and mass grading, I'm sorry.
And the grading?
Yeah, and an amendment to the mass grading ordinance at a request of the board.
Okay. Anything else from staff?